Now, first things first, I'd like to take a quick moment to thank you all for watching these videos and for subscribing. As of writing the script, we're insanely close to 500 subscribers, and by the time I'm done recording and editing this, we may have actually hit it, so I suppose this could count as a 500 subscriber special in a way. I'm genuinely amazed so many of you keep coming back to watch these videos, and that so many of you enjoy them enough to think it worth subscribing. So thank you all, and I promise that the quality of the content will continue to improve throughout this year and all the years to come. But with that sloppiness over, it's time to jump right into Wuthering Heights to see who we have to kill first. Surprisingly, practically the first 2/3 of Canto VI have literally no fights for us. In fact, the first boss we have to fight is well into the basement of the Canto, starting off with Hindley's non-focused encounter. Now, if you couldn't tell already, the fact that this is a non-focused encounter isn't a good sign for Hindley. If he actually has any mechanics, I personally am none the wiser. Sanity isn't even remotely an issue, with plenty of dead rabbits throwing themselves at Essen before his arrival, putting us in a good position in terms of sanity to completely wipe the floor with him. This absolute destruction is so bad, in fact, that Hindley distorts on the spot. This, however, is not going to stop us from tearing him into pieces. Distorted Hindley, as opposed to normal Hindley, actually has something going for him, and that's the fact that he doesn't have an entire ensemble beforehand feeding us free ego resource and SP. Oh, and he can heal if he hits us, but that's not really important to know. These buffs, although incredibly minor, do allow him to get one over on me whilst I wasn't very prepared. Still, on the next attempt, we kill him with ease. This is, honestly, not very surprising for one key reason. Distorted Hindley is a common enemy later in the Canto. Still, sneak peeks into the future aside, we've got something new to fight, something that provides the first glimpse into what was going to keep me trapped for the next several hours. That something was Matt. Matt in of himself is not a hard boss, for me at least. He's held back by one crucial aspect, and that's the support he drags along to the fight with him. These supports are great for us for a number of reasons, all of which essentially cause Matt to shoot himself in the foot, and I'll go through the list right now. First of all, whilst the ads exist, Matt can't reach his maximum number of skill slots, which is amazing for us. All the dead rabbits clash at a far lower value than Matt himself, which means that the longer we can keep him from being able to attack us at full force, the better things are for us. Secondly, these dead rabbits give us some good attacks to clash against to raise SP. As just mentioned prior, they have a far lower clash ceiling than Matt, which means we don't actually have to get lucky to win against them. Which is also aided by the fact that they actually lose SP when losing a clash too, unlike Matt and then the next boss. And finally, these ads target other members of the team. Now, that may not sound like much, but trust me, once you play through the boss we've got up next, you're grateful for any help with speed drills possible. So, with all that said, let's move on quickly, right into the jaws of hell itself. Welcome back everyone to Backcliff. If you haven't watched the previous video I put out of this boss, that's alright, you can go watch it after this one if you really want. But there's something different now. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. When I was making that video, I hadn't beaten Backcliff before. I've been trapped for hours, going round and round in circles, just waiting for my lucky shot. But things have changed. After 10 whole hours, Backcliff is dead, and I have killed him. The hardest boss the base AD challenge has seen up until now was finally dealt with. So, seeing as there's no way I could possibly make a montage out of all that footage, allow me to walk you through the tension points of the final few events, the winning strategy we eventually settled on, and the final attempt itself. Backcliff's major issues remain. Plenty of health, SP that never seems to go down, and speedrolls having the chance to just flat out kill us. But with the help of everyone who joined the stream, we came up with some new ways to deal with these old tension points, and discovered some new ones to boot. Firstly, and the most major tension point we found a workaround for, Backcliff's SP. Backcliff's SP is a major reason why he's a hellish boss to fight, with only a few clashes needed to be won by him to instantly catapult him to 45 SP. This makes him a nightmare to fight, with a newly discovered tension point that I'll go into later making him infinitely worse if he hits that point. So, how do we lower Backcliff's SP if the only way to do so is by 5 SP per turn normally? Well, this is where I need to explain a mechanic I mostly glossed over in the previous video, Backcliff's shields. For each of the 3 phases in Backcliff's fight, there's a shield, with the one common factor about them being that when somebody with this shield gets hit, they gain offense power by the number of times they were hit to a maximum of 9. The different flavours of shield are Wrath, Gloom, and Envy, with Backcliff taking slightly more damage from these sin affinities whilst the respective shield is in place. But Gloom and Envy both do additional things beyond simply giving Backcliff more offense level. They have effects on hit. The Envy shield is only bad for us, applying 2 bleed counter potency every time Backcliff's shield is hit, potentially rapidly spiraling if a sinner only has 1 coin attacks. Gloom, however, has 2 effects. Firstly, it lowers the SP of the sinner who hit Backcliff by a small amount every time he's hit. But what about the second effect? Well, rather simply, every time Backcliff is hit with the shield, he gains 1 potency and count of sinking. Can you see where this is going? All we have to do is get 1 count of sinking onto Backcliff and we can drive him down into the negatives, allowing us to keep in a bad position for the rest of the fight if we're lucky. But there's one minor problem with this. We need to get 1 count of sinking onto Backcliff first. there was only really one sinner that would serve the purpose needed here, and that's Yeang. His skill 3 applies 1 count of sinking, all that we'd need to turn the tides of the fight in our favour. This made him, other than Heathcliff, the first member of the new hit squad that was being designed to finally break the cycle. Yeang is useful for more than one purpose as well though, and that's resolving the second most annoying tension point of the fight, speed rolls. There are 2 status effects that help mitigate speed rolls, and that's Binds and Haste. Binds lowers the speed roll of whoever it's applied to, whilst Haste increases the speed roll of whatever it's applied to. There's really only 2 ego that come to mind for this purpose, and that's Chains of Others and Crow's Eye View. This is, alongside the previously mentioned strategy to get Backcliff to negative SP, the reason why Yeang undebatably ends up on the team. But for theory's sake, let's go into why Musou isn't being used for this eventual team. Musou's speed range is, frankly, abysmal. 2 to 3 speed normally won't be an issue, though, if enemies decide to occasionally target him with an attack he can clash, or if we don't care about clashing every attack. But neither of these are the case with Backcliff. Backcliff will always target Heathcliff with every attack available to him, which means that the only way we're going to redirect his attacks is by rolling a higher modified speed than him, which for Musou would take an insane amount of luck or good usage of Binds and Haste. For some of the bosses this might not be an issue, but this is a major issue for Backcliff. At maximum, Backcliff gets 5 slots per turn, with one of these being a shield we always want to offset to prevent Backcliff from getting a free attack up. With Musou on the team, we'd always be forfeiting at least 1 skill slot when it comes to clashing, forcing us to get optimal luck for each and every turn. In addition to this, although Chains of Others lowers Backcliff's attack and speed by a sizable amount, it also lowers Musou's attack and speed, further making his slot a permanent dead zone that we can't even clash with when using Chains more than once in a row. In comparison to this, Yeang suffers none of the drawbacks for all of the buffs. His ego provides haste to our sinners rather than debuffing Backcliff with binds. This stops one slot from becoming a dead zone for the usage of our strategy, which is also benefited by Yeang's naturally high speed. So at the end of the day, it's always going to be more optimal for us to put Yeang on the team rather than Musou. So with Heathcliff and Yeang decided for our team, what are we going to do next? Well, we need to decide on the actual final size of our team. So, after going back and forth on the topic for a while, we decided to finalise the amount of sinners we were going to bring into the fight at 4. This allows us to double slot 2 sinners, with one of the 2 always being Heathcliff to further mitigate the tension point of Backcliff getting good speed rolls. So, for the rest of our team, we decided to add Honglu to fill the remaining double slot, and Faust to fill the remaining single slot. Both these 2 IDs are good in their own right, but provide us far more benefit than what might be immediately evident when they work together. Honglu deals plenty of damage, with good clashing skills that have some amazing conditionals if he didn't take damage the turn prior, not to mention the small amounts of sync he applies that can help to keep Backcliff in check before we reach phase 2. But neither of those are the thing that's most important for us on the team. That would be his active ability, Entertainment. Entertainment is a very good ability for a situation like this, where getting as much SP as possible within a small amount of time is key to stop us from dying as frequently. Specifically, it gives Honglu 6 SP the turn after 2 Sloth Resonance occurs. This is very useful for us, as it lets us get at least 1 sinner to 45 SP, which is made even more useful by our double slotting him, giving us 2 for the price of 1. But why is Faust on the team? Well, Faust has a decent speed range, enough to at least offset Backcliff's guard most turns, but in addition to this she had 2 aces up her sleeves that set her apart from any other picks we could have gone for. These are her debuff application and representation emitter. Starting with representation emitter, I don't really need to explain what makes it an amazing thing to have for a fight where SP is critical. It's most useful for us in a mechanic that our Heathcliff has, and that's constantly losing SP throughout the fight. This is, rather obviously, not good for us, and no more so than at the end of phase 2, where we want Heathcliff to be able to hit heads twice to pass a check to give himself 5 protection rather than 3 fragile for the rest of the fight. But in addition to this, it's also useful for phase 2, where hitting Backcliff's shield will drain our SP that we've been building up throughout the fight. In addition to a representation emitter, however, are her buffs, that being an application of Paralyze, 3 offense down, and a potential 2 attack power down, respectively. Although not much, these are enough to shave a decent chunk of RNG off of Backcliff, smoothing our way to the point where we can deal with the tensions of the fight. So, that's our team fully settled. Honglu goes in first, Heathcliff in second, and then Yeang and Faust in any order to finish. Honglu goes up in SP very quickly thanks to Entertainment, whilst Yeang and Faust slowly gain SP through clashing, and Heathcliff flashes at least 1 attack per turn to keep Backcliff's SP as low as possible for as long as possible. Then, when phase 2 hits, we use Yeang's skill 3 to apply a Canto VI, and then get Backcliff far into the negatives. From there we use Crow's Eye View every turn to ensure that bad speed rolls won't spell the end for us as they've done in the past. This should, by all accounts, be a flawless plan. That is, if it wasn't for the most major of all tension points, one that was hidden by all the others until we developed this perfect kill squad. That tension point is the 5% chance to hit tails at 45 SP. There is, rather simply, nothing we can do to stop this. Due to the way that Sanity works in Limbus Company, we can never get more than a 95% chance to hit heads. Ordinarily this might not be much of an issue, but for this fight where every single clash counts, it becomes a major issue. Most runs that made it past the initial spree of clashing fell to this tension point. Honglu failed more key clashes than I can count because of this 5% chance, perfectly winning runs dying in a way that I, at the end of the day, could do nothing about. Still, with all of that out of the way, allow me to talk you through the run that finally allowed me to kill Backcliff. Turn 1 and 2 go well, with our winning every clash for a good start to the SP balance of the fight. Honglu were already reaching 45 SP by the third turn of the fight. Backcliff gets very lucky on a speed roll when his shield runs out, preventing us from being able to clash every one of his attacks. This thankfully doesn't stagger Heathcliff, as we can use Body Sack to ensure that he can only get 2 instances of damage in. His shield is down now, allowing us to speed through into phase 2. In the first turn of phase 2, we get very lucky to use Yisang's skill 3, immediately putting a counter Sinky onto Backcliff. This allows us to get into negative 23 by the end of his second shield phase. This, however, doesn't stop Honglu from deciding to hit the 5% twice. But this isn't impossible to come back from. However, everyone decides to start hitting the 5% chance the turn after. This barely doesn't stagger multiple of our sinners due to Backcliff being far into the negatives. We managed to stagger him now, putting us into the final phase of the fight, although sadly his SP resets to 0 due to our lowering his SP too much. We don't succeed in the Heathcliff event, but by this point it hopefully won't be necessary. Now in phase 3 we begin the spam of Crow's Eye View. I was not losing another run to bad speed values at this point, hence why I wanted the team to have haste every turn. His shield runs out without issue, allowing us to simply clash each attack until Backcliff is at last dead. And with that, victory over Backcliff was finally ours. I'm going to give Past Me the floor now to show you the live reaction to my winning the fight. It's over. Let's watch this play out, chat. I'm going to stop the music. There we are, chat. We did it. We did it, chat. We did it. Like I said, winner's POV. You are all here, chat. You are all here. We did it. The ideal. Here we are. Let's let this play out. I'm gonna put this on auto, and I'm going to just lean back and enjoy. Chat, it's done.
뭐 이 정도에 좋다고 희죽거리고 싶진 않아.
Yes! Oh, it's over! So, with that hell over, we can begin the ascension forward and into the light. Immediately after Backcliff is distorted Heathcliff, a boss that was a million times easier than Backcliff to kill. One major reason for this is he loses sanity properly. Targ Essen is like a normal boss as well. In fact, he was so little of an issue that Honglu died right at the start of the wing attempt, not negatively affecting us in any sizable way beyond potentially not being able to deal as much damage, which is already less of a sizable issue thanks to this being a proper DPS team of Otis, Roche and Sinclair. He goes down without much issue beyond this death, allowing us to finally move on from this accursed place. But first we need to fight our way out of the basement and through the Wild Hunt itself. In all honesty, this gave me more worry than actual tangible issue, with my sinners being more than capable of dealing with the first waves, but enough ego resource to be able to handle any attack thrown their way throughout the later waves. Berg arrives, several hours late I may add, allowing us to continue on our first proper fight with the Elking. The quirk of this first fight with the Elking is our having to kill the proper units to prevent Elking from being able to use very strong moves that would turn us into mush. But with some focus fire from our DPS team, the Elking doesn't get to use any of these moves before we can kill the respective target. 2 targets left now. Nelly was one of the bosses I was most scared of going into this Canto, for one specific reason, and that reason is Binding Technique. For anyone who doesn't know, Nelly has a special status effect that's used nowhere else in the game in the form of Binding Technique. Whenever it reaches 3 count, the sinner whose it's applied to is staggered for the remainder of the fight, potentially becoming an issue if enough of our team hasn't reached 3. Even before this point, Nelly gains advantages clashing with sinners who have Binding Technique applied, which means if a majority of our team gets it, it would end up in a difficult position of having to balance not having our sinners staggered and dealing with high clashing attacks. Would be the case if I designed the fight. No, these interesting mechanics aren't really seen at all throughout the fight, only appearing after an event that occurs some point towards the end. So let me quickly go over what actually happened, and then I'll double back and explore a potential rework for Nelly, because the mechanics are too good to be left in the state they are in currently. Nelly in actuality has one present issue, and that's her evade skill that can hit a max of 14. This evade skill has the ability to heal her for 5 SP on evade, essentially healing her for any SP damage that was dealt from losing the clash and regaining more. This shouldn't be too much of an issue though. From the start of the fight she only has a 5% chance to hit heads, which is lowered if she loses her first clash. I lost the first entire fight from her hitting 7 heads in a row. Now, I'll admit the chances of this were roughly 70% for heads for the later flips due to the Sunny gained prior, but all in all this was still only a 2% chance of it occurring, if you assume 60% chance in heads on average. I feel I'm allowed to be annoyed with this, although it was nothing I couldn't fix by simply restarting. The second try went much smoother, with us gaining a healthy sanity advantage on her within a few turns that carried us throughout most of the fight. Heathcliff even got staggered through Binding Technique at the end of the encounter, although this posed quite literally no issue for us, with the fight ending soon after. So it's time to go back. What do I think should be changed about Nelly? Well, first and most obviously of all, Binding Technique should be applied from the start of the fight. Thematically it makes sense for the event to trigger the release to binds, but I would have actually had to make them an issue for myself to pose any difficulty. From here I'd suggest a rework to how Binding Technique is applied and what it actually does. Currently up to count 3 it does nothing at all beyond potentially buffing Nelly if you're not aware of what it is you're clashing, as in purposely spamming win rate for some reason without even checking the predictions. So, my proposal is that instead of simply staggering somebody upon hitting 3, each count of Binding Technique should lower the speed of a sinner by 1, staggering them in any turn where their speed would have hit 0. This provides tangible reason to worry about binds beyond simply not wanting it to hit 3. As well as this bind should be applied to all sinners at every turn, not simply whoever clashes with one specific attack. This could then be cleared by winning clashes with Nelly, meaning everyone on the team would have to consistently win clashes or face being staggered in very few turns. As well as these changes to Binding Technique though, I'd like to change how Nelly's other unique status effect, Butler's Target, works. Rather than being applied to those who clash with some of her attacks, it should be instead given to whoever rolls the lowest in a turn, targeting all of her attacks towards that person. As well as this, attacks landed against sinners with Butler's Target could also apply Binding Technique. This makes having high Binding Technique an actual threat, as it can snowball into sinners being comboed into stagger and then death. Still, there's no chance of my actually implementing that. I have no idea how to code. So in the end I've just got to leave the idea here and move on. It's time to end this. Just quickly before then though, I'd like to take the chance to ask you to subscribe. It's the quickest and easiest way to show that you enjoy the content I make, as well as helping out the channel greatly. Normally I'd wait until the end of the episode to ask, but after the insanity that's gone into this effort, I decided to ask slightly earlier. But without further ado, let's go kill the Oing. The first phase of this final fight is by far the hardest, and that's for one simple reason. The Oing gets to bring along friends, specifically the 4 Wuthering Heights shades we fought as part of the Wild Hunt before. This is an issue for one major reason. They all clash well and have separate sanity counts. As well as this, the Oing gets unclashable damage in every few turns, which can be dealt with at the cost of evade skill on our end, but it's still damage when not dealing. As if these weren't issues enough though, the Oing has one more trick up his sleeve. He can give offense level to his own allies using one of these unclashable attacks. This move is really the major tension point of this first phase, as if we can reach and get past with the advantage on our side, we've very likely won it. To move on from this phase, we need to get Oing to his first stagger bar. Really though, all we need to do is get our SP to 45 for most of our sinners as a foe win condition. If we can do this, we can continue to clash with whatever the King sends our way. All that was really left to do was keep trying, over and over, until eventually we get the RNG we need to crack the fight once and for all, and before long, we got that run. Not wanting to squander this opportunity, I took my time with the next few phases. In all honesty though, there's really no longer any difficulty to the fight. Cinematically, this fight is my favourite in the entire game, with each phase perfectly blending with the song to deliver the experience the game wants you to have. But really, this fight is just an extended cutscene beyond the first phase, with the final verdict being all but sighted until you reach Kathy's help, officially ending the fight. So, without further ado, Canto VI shall end. And with that, we're free to pursue the final few challenges we have left before we've completed all that's available to us. The process of making this video has been an insane one, with 500 being shadowed before I'd even finished writing up the script. You can probably see then, down where the subscriber button was before you hopefully subscribed, the membership tab. I've tried to make all tiers as reasonably priced as possible, with anyone signing up to Librarian or Nugget tier getting shouted at the end of the videos from now on. So with that said, thank you to Maydev, the one and only member right now, and above all else, Merry Christmas. Good morning, good evening, and good night to you all.